What's going on? Zachariah Kaine. Welcome back to Kaine Enabled. Survival horror. Throw a couple names out there. As soon as you hear the name survival horror, you think of Resident Evil, you think of Silent Hill, to a lesser extent games like Clock Tower, Evil Within, yada yada yada. Today what we're going to do is take a look at one of the most slept on in the entire genre in my opinion, Fatal Frame. And yes, I know this isn't technically a sleeper because it's had multiple releases throughout multiple countries in the better part of almost 20 years now. Yes, 20 years to be exact since the first Fatal Frame released. Point being, most people's top 5s won't contain this game, and that's not fair. So I guess it's time to open the photo album of Fatal Frame, and hopefully I can get some new fans on board. A really good IP. Zachariah Kaine, Kaine Enabled. Let's go. As previously mentioned in my Haunting Ground breakdown, which a link can be found to in the description of this video, the early 2000s are frequently regarded as the heyday of survival horror video games. Titles like Resident Evil, Clock Tower, and Silent Hill claimed their stake in the genre early in the 90s, but each of these franchises seamlessly dovetailed into the millennium with future installments alongside new IP like Obscure and Cold Fear. The 6th generation of consoles is iconic for many reasons, one of which being the plethora of choice, from the Dreamcast exclusives Blue Stinger and Illbleed, all the way to the GameCube with Eternal Darkness, as well as the unchallenged king of remakes, Resident Evil. Needless to say, there was more than enough variety for the common to the diehard and every survival horror fan in between. Within the genre of survival horror itself is an almost sub-genre categorized by aesthetic and atmospheric tones, otherworldly to outer space, rituals, plagues, curses, and viruses. In its infancy, developers had a sandbox full of untouched dunes to shape the castle of their choice. One of the most successful of the survival horror genre is the Japanese-inspired stories that were so popular on PlayStation 1. And this trend carried over into the next generation of consoles with titles like Clock Tower, Haunting Ground, and Siren all leaning heavy on the latter choice of when it comes to fight or flight. Games that arm you with little to no line of offense. Now for the record, Resident Evil is right up there on the top of my list for favorite franchises of all time, but there's just another layer of fear playing a game designed to favor fleeing over facing the threat head on. And this is exactly the direction Tecmo opted to go when they began developing a new IP codenamed Project Zero in 2001. Tecmo, most notably known for games like Tecmo Bowl, Ninja Gaiden, and Monster Rancher, had only dabbled in the world of suspense once prior to the development of this new IP, with the Deception series, and even that's classified as a strategic RPG, much like Night Trap. So with their first step to the plate, Tecmo would surely set out to make their presence known in the survival horror landscape. Drawing inspiration from the positive reception received by Silent Hill, director Makoto Shibata wanted to replicate a similar atmosphere, all the while creating a story all his own. Understanding the direction he wanted to go, Shibata finished the story of the game long before the textures themselves were even in pre-development. This immensely helped set the tone for the entire game, as CGI creator and director Jin Hasegawa allowed the story help create the color direction of the game, focusing on 2 key colors, white and black, with black representing the fear of the unknown, and white symbolizing the hope that drives the main character in the game. The location the game revolves around was a concept Shibata initially intended to use for the Deception series, however he opted out of this direction, citing it would put too many limitations when it came to the trap setting trope Deception's known for, thankfully getting the chance to revisit this concept once the new IP's development cycle was greenlit. And so it was, as Zero was released in Japan in December of 2001, March of 2002 in the United States, and August of the same year in Europe. Fatal Frame was released solely for Sony's PlayStation 2 in its original life cycle. However, 2 years after the Japan release, the game was finally re-released on Microsoft's Xbox in 2003 with added mechanics and features that we'll get into in due time. As stated before, the game fell into the survival horror genre, Japanese storytelling more specifically, revolving around demons, ghosts, and pseudo-magic. The game immediately faced a fair bit of controversy after choosing to add the subtitle based on a true story to the North American release, but this didn't stop Shibata or make him backpedal his decision, as in multiple interviews after the release he countlessly references both a Japanese mansion in the game, as well as 2 Japanese urban legends being the inspiration for the entire plot and setting. Whether it's truth or just an impressive imagination, it's time to dive into Fatal Frame and see where it holds up in the greatest boom period of survival horror video games. Starting with the tone, Fatal Frame feels very alone and empty, in some instances a very found footage feeling, levels of despair oozing from the corners of every hallway and staircase. With almost no soundtrack, the atmosphere is forced and faint at the same time. A void jam-packed to the brim with nothingness. Cold, dark, and isolated. Fatal Frame wastes no time trying to set the tone of being by ourselves, but not necessarily alone. From the opening cutscene, hearing the voice of a young girl revealing the special ability her and her brother possess, being able to see things most others can't, then shifting to what seems to be the referenced brother walking alone through a forest before stopping at a bridge, leading to a compound he calls Himuro Mansion. The feeling of being alone is felt within seconds of this cutscene. The male character continues to walk forward as the girl's voice continues her emotionless dialogue, which almost sounds like a eulogy, constantly referring to her brother in past tense as he reaches the front door of this decrepit dojo before the screen fades to black, ending the game's introduction cutscene. Screen fades, title rolls in. This is Fatal Frame. Control-wise, Fatal Frame feels like every survival horror title of the time, from Clock Tower 3 to Haunting Ground, that last grasp of the iconic tank control, in its evolved form of course. Simple, tried and true, this is the best choice for this character control of this environment with the story that's being told in Fatal Frame. The go-to I use when trying to describe the camera angles of games like Fatal Frame is Resident Evil Code Veronica X. The sometimes fixed camera angles, hard shifting to a drifting or a panning shot, drifting away from behind the character in those moments you'd prefer to see what lies ahead. That classic survival horror camera aesthetic that, when done right, can build the tension of the unseen to the point where a camera switch to your own character makes your heart skip a beat in anticipation. See, that's classic survival horror. As stated earlier, developers had a massive opportunity to create ways and shticks they could call their own in the beginning boom of survival horror. Shibata and Tecmo fully took advantage of this opportunity, introducing combat by photography. The objective of thwarting off evil spirits in Fatal Frame is to aim down the sights, but not of a firearm, of a special camera called the Camera Obscura that has the ability to capture and defeat demonic entities, banishing them from this realm. Lining these souls up in the viewfinder and taking a picture inflicts more damage to these otherwise unseen pursuers. Power-ups coming in both the form of stronger film as well as a point-based upgrade system acquired based on the technique that's taken in your past encounters also grants upgradable ability options to a group of stat boosts, whether it's stronger shots, unlocking more spirit power, or faster cooldown between your shots. Along with these traditional upgrades, the spirit points allow access to an upgraded collection of lenses, only one of which can be equipped at a time and each hosting its own special ability, whether it be the ability to easily locate the enemy as it sways in and out of view, down to the ability to paralyze the spirit for a few seconds to help get a stronger shot off. Now don't get it twisted though, Fatal Frame's far from your paranormal Pokemon Snap. The spirit power I mentioned is a collection of characters that build up a damage boost the longer you keep the spirit in the center of your shot within the glowing blue circle. Once they've had enough photo time, they decide to launch themselves at the player, giving you only a split second to take the shot as that glowing blue orb now turns from blue to yellow. But this is when that shot does extra damage, awarding higher spirit points as well as a pretty cool keepsake for the in-game photo album. That hesitation can cost you the game if you aren't quick enough to put these spirits away, especially in Nightmare difficulty, but we'll touch base on that one momentarily. And this isn't the only use of the camera either. There's moments throughout your travels where you're carrying on your way and the ambient ghostly background music fades away as it's replaced with a heartbeat. This heartbeat acts as a quick time notification to pull up your camera and catch a non-interactive spirit somewhere in your presence. These are missable, but in missing them, it doesn't make your game suffer. They act as fast minigames in my opinion. You get 3 to 4 seconds to pull up your camera from the first heartbeat, quickly scan for the ghost. Snapping a proper pic will catalog the ghost in a checklist that, when completed, gives you more goodies, which is again something we'll get into shortly. The only chance for survival in Fatal Frame is stockpiling herbal medicine and sacred water found in various spots about the property, along with an item called a stone mirror. Possession of this item will grant you an essential +1 or a bonus life. If the pursuer in the game manages to attack you enough to deplete all of your health gauge, this item is automatically used, as instead of seeing the game over screen, you get another chance to fight off your enemy. These items are again a one-time use, and to make it more interesting, you can only hold one of these items at a time. There are roughly 4 to 5 scattered about the land on any given night, so proper management and memory of their locations is the key to progression. Another unique feature in Fatal Frame is the sound design. Shigeki Okuda envisioned the use of the 3D dimensional surround sound to reinforce the atmospheric tone of the game, which worked to perfection. Outside of the viewfinder itself, directional sound is the key to pinning down those slippery spirits as they can phase in and out of view rather quickly, making it essential to pay attention to which direction you hear them shifting. This, along with the spine-chilling soundtrack, which is less of a musical composition and more of a collection of unnerving sounds compiled together in a terrifically terrifying backtrack as you tread onward into the unknown. And of course, one of if not the most important pieces of the survival horror puzzle has to be just that, good puzzles. The kind that make you scratch your head with the use of true thought, something that many games just don't do anymore. Fatal Frame smashes this with some really good puzzles spread throughout the game. There aren't too many, but door combinations are laid out behind special characters that translate to a specific number. It's up to you to determine the location of the master key and to use these translations as well as the corresponding sequence to gain access to the specific door that you're on, as well as a sliding puzzle that you'll happen upon several times in the game. The puzzles in Fatal Frame feel very good and very rewarding once you enter the right sequence of numbers and hear the door click or slide that last stone into place before you run out of moves. So I'm happy to report that this legendary linchpin of survival horror absolutely lives on in Fatal Frame. The story is set in Japan in September of 1986 and revolves around 17-year-old Miku Hinasaki and her older brother Mafuyu, both of which possess the supernatural ability to see things others can't. In possession of a special camera passed down to him from his deceased mother, Mafuyu sets on a pilgrimage to the wilderness of Japan to Himuro Mansion, a place claimed to be haunted and occupied by evil spirits not fond of this world, in search of a man named Junsei Takamine, a famous folklore author and the man Mafuyu felt eternally indebted to, who himself and two others set off on a journey to Himuro while researching a new book he was writing. After 2 weeks of not hearing from Mafuyu, Miku, fearing the worst, then sets off to the same mansion in search of her missing brother. Her fears only grow as she enters the front doors of this building where she finds the camera that was given to Mafuyu from their mother, discarded carelessly in the entranceway. Intent on discovering the truth, Miku braves onward. Unfortunately, the further she journeys into the compound, the more she realizes the claims of this place being haunted were more than just myth, and that this disappearance of both Takamine and Mafuyu were way more than just coincidence. All in all, to basically sum the game up before diving in, it's spread over 4 nights. There's an introduction plus 4 separate nights with the main protagonist. I don't want to dive into it too much without giving the spoiler warning, so boom. And if you're ready for the ride, let's go. If not, I understand. Skip to the point ahead. And for all those who are here for this, there we go. The story begins with Mafuyu entering Himuro Mansion in search of Junsei Takamine, someone he personally felt indebted to, who went missing after exploring the mansion researching for his next hit novel. Carrying onward and entering the rundown entryway, Mafuyu sees what appears to be Takamine himself walking aimlessly across the perpendicular hallway several meters ahead before entering a door and vanishing. Following the man through the door, Mafuyu finds himself in a dining room where once again above the balcony he sees Takamine staring down at him before stepping back out of view. Proceeding forward up the staircase after Junsei, Mafuyu finds his diary laying on the ground. Then, with the gift his sister had mentioned the two of them had possessed earlier, Mafuyu is able to see a vision of Takamine along with his editor Koji Ogata and personal assistant Tomo Hirasaka, traveling down the same hallway Mafuyu had just walked down moments earlier, as what looks to be the spirit of a woman shrouded by dozens of hands embark on the trio before the vision ends. Mafuyu's train of thought is then broken as he hears the steps he had just climbed begin to creak behind him, one step at a time with no view of the creator of these steps as they make their way down the landing to where he stands. Mafuyu, remembering a story told to him long ago about the special ability of his camera, that being the ability to see and capture ghosts, raises the camera where he sees a spirit manifest before his eyes, launching itself at him. Before the being has a chance to get close, Mafuyu snaps a photo which seems to damage the spirit, seemingly defeating this ghost. Collecting himself, Mafuyu returns back down the stairs and out the door to the hallway he had been in previously, the hallway he had seen Takamine and his team traversing just moments earlier in his vision, only to see himself face to face with something unknown as the screen fades to white and the story of Mafuyu seemingly comes to an end, for the moment. The story then switches to Miku Hinasaki 2 weeks after she had last heard from Mafuyu. Following a lead he had left in a note for her, Miku finds herself staring at the same building as her ill-fated brother. As she prepares herself and sets out to reunite with Mafuyu, she crosses the bridge and enters the building. Carrying on, Miku finds herself in a hallway lined with ropes hanging from the ceiling. At the end of this hall, she's sent into dread as she finds her brother's camera laying carelessly on the floor, with Mafuyu nowhere in sight. Reaching down and touching the camera gives Miku access to a vision of Mafuyu running down this same hallway. However, instead of wood walls on either side, Mafuyu is surrounded by hundreds of hands reaching out at him, as he frantically runs forward from an emotionless woman slowly gliding towards him, reaching the end of the hall only to be greeted by more hands. Mafuyu turns back with only a split second to call out Miku's name before the hands launch toward him, ending the vision as the screen fades to white. Picking up the camera as well as a notebook, Miku sees what looks to be that same exact woman standing behind her before vanishing in a split second. Reading through Mifuyu's journal, Miku learns of the past of the Himuro mansion and the Shinto rituals said to have been once done on these grounds, along with the alleged murders that had occurred. The journal ends with Mifuyu noting an uneasy feeling as he continues his journey to find Takamine. Miku continues on through the next area of the mansion where she sees what looks like her brother walking up a staircase at the end of the room, but giving chase yields no luck. Returning to the first floor, Miku sees yet another wandering spirit pass through what looks to be a wall. As she closes in on the area, the spirit of a young girl dressed in all white appears and silently points at her camera, then points at the spot on the wall where the ghost had just vanished, where, after further investigation, Miku is able to locate a door. Proceeding through this door, Miku finds a tape recorder along with yet another harmless apparition. Touching the recorder once again grants Miku with a vision, this time of Takamine's editor Ogata running into the room and taking refuge in this closet. Frantically trying to calm himself, Ogata sees the same woman from Mifuyu's vision, opening the closet door as dozens of hands rush towards Ogata, letting out one last terrified scream before the vision once again ends. The tape recorder itself contains a tape of Ogata documenting the team's journey, stating they had to help seek out locals to help them find Himuro Mansion, as it wasn't on any maps they had. The locals did help locate, but they also urged not to go any further. Ogata felt this was very concerning, however it was eventually disregarded. Next, Miku finds herself in a small storage area where the now angry spirit of Ogata appears, repeating the words ropes over and over again. He then launches himself at her, but hastily acting, Miku raises her camera and captures Ogata's spirit before he can reach her. After listening to another audio tape where Ogata mentioned spotting the woman in white in the hallway, Miku is able to unlock a chest in the room where she finds a key with a normal looking photo of Ogata that then shifts, glowing faint ropes wrapped around his neck, wrists, and ankles. Returning to the first area again, Miku spots someone running up the stairs. Remembering a padlocked door at the top, she uses the key she had found in the box to gain access to whatever's on the other side. Passing through a personal study, she sees yet another wandering spirit. This time it's the spirit of Takamine's personal assistant, Hirasaka. Miku moves on where once again she sees Hirasaka, the woman dressed in red, in front of a giant candlelit shrine. As the spirit again fades out of view, Miku finds another journal, this appearing to be that of Takamine's, making mention of finding Ogata's deceased body with ropes tied around his wrists and neck, as well as an entry mentioning Hirasaka seemingly falling apart at the seams, repeating nonsensical phrases about ropes and mirrors. Miku carries on, finding more journal entries spread about the upper and lower floors, speaking of rituals and deaths of children that had been rumored to have occurred some time ago. Miku proceeds further throughout the mansion, finding a file detailing something called the Calamity, an event involving a magic mirror breaking within the 5 shrines, allowing Hell's demons to return to Earth. Returning to the no longer locked door, Miku enters and finds herself outside in a small courtyard filled with a tree, a rock grave, and another shrine, as she once again sees the roaming spirit of Hirasaka. Next to the apparition is another of Takamine's journal pages. This time it explains how Hirasaka seemed to have lost all grip on reality, making it hard for her to continue out of the building. So instead, Takamine opted to leave her and exit the building alone. Moving forward, she finds a cassette tape lying against a large water wheel where touching the tape grants her to a new vision, this time of Hirasaka, begging for help as the rope impressions appear around her neck and hands. As she turns back with her last gasp of breath, she sees the same woman in white looking emotionless back towards her, as hands rush from all sides, killing Hirasaka. The vision then shifts to the side to see that Takamine was present during this entire event, calling out the name Kirie to the woman in white, as she responds to the name and the vision ends. Miku then returns to the courtyard and enters a room that looks to be a doll shrine, with walls lined in dozens of dolls and small figurines draped in red. Capturing the spirit of a child inside of the room with her, Miku then returns back to the courtyard and enters another door. As she enters the room, she then spots a new spirit, this time of Takamine himself, looking into the mirror before fading away, uttering the words Kirie, rope, and maiden. She also finds more of Takamine's journal, speaking about Kirie being the rope shrine maiden, and how Ogata and Hirasaka's deaths were identical to the ones that said to have occurred many years before in the mountain region. Next, after being attacked by a previously harmless ghost form of Hirasaka, Miku snaps a photo much like she's done several times throughout the night, capturing Tomoe's spirit. Shortly thereafter, she finds herself next to a water well where Takamine's spirit once again appears next to a journal entry speaking of 5 pieces of a mirror needed to seal the gates of hell and protect the people of this region. It talks about the 5 pieces breaking during an earthquake, which led to Takamine in the new task of attempting to reunite the 5 shards to form the one mirror, rumored to be called the Holy Mirror. She follows the direction his spirit seemed to have been headed, which leads Miku to the Shinto shrine placed atop a long staircase. Ascending the stairs, she enters through the front door of the shrine where she's horrified to find the spirit of Takamine crucified and hung across the ceiling of the temple. She then gets a vision of Takamine above, as the hands seen in every vision so far seemingly are holding his body as he falls from the ceiling and charges at Miku. Acting with the same haste that has gotten her to where she is, Miku manages to seal Takamine's spirit thanks to the camera once again, before he has a chance to hurt her. Approaching the center of the shrine once more, Miku finds the first of the 5 shards of the mirror, but unfortunately for her, as she moves in to grab the shard, the same white-draped woman seen in all of her visions, Kirie, emerges from the mirror in the room. Quickly taking aim with her camera, Miku snaps a shot of the woman, but nothing happens. As if this woman is immune to her camera, she ignores the effect and grabs Miku, giving her a vision of herself having ropes tied around her neck, wrists, and ankles as the ropes, each tied to a wheel, tighten. This vision then switches to a point of her own view, being surrounded by a group of children harmonically humming a haunting chant and saying things like, Coming to, Miku finds herself now back in the doll shrine with the same rope-branded wrists as Hirasaka. This, the end of night 1. Still staring at the marks on her wrists, Miku catches a glimpse of a ghost child holding Miku's recently acquired mirror shard as the child slowly fades away. Gathering herself, Miku exits the room and returns to the courtyard where she's approached by yet another new spirit. This time the spirit is that of a woman with streams of blood flowing like tears from where her eyes had once sat. The evil spirit is captured via the camera obscura. Afterwards, Miku travels back to the candlelit shrine room where she once again now gains access to a new area of the compound. As she crosses a large breezeway, she spots what looks to be Mafuyu again walking ahead. Losing him around a corner, she finds a piece of his diary touching on the mansion's evil inhabitants, attempting to revert the mansion to the past along with Mafuyu himself. As she enters the next location, she finds a large door sealed off, requiring what looks to be a mask to gain entry. Backtracking, she finds a new diary, this time from a woman referencing the power of the camera possessed along with a decision to keep this from her child Mikoto. Learning afterwards that Mikoto in the diary is her grandmother, further connecting the dots of their special ability and the camera she currently possesses. Continuing the hunt for the mask, she then opens a large door, finding herself back in the front room of the mansion, where the grandfather clock strikes as she approaches, sending the child that ran off with her mirror shard from before out of hiding. He chases after Miku, attempting to play a game called Demon Tag, a twisted spin on normal tag mixed with hide and seek where only those bearing the rope marks or spirits can participate. She manages to snap a photo of the child, capturing it and at the same time regaining that first of her mirror shards. Continuing to search this new area of the building, Miku finds herself in someone's personal quarters with a gramophone, a koto, and a collection of photos spread about a table. Touching the photos gives Miku a vision. The vision shows herself sitting at a table with a collection of photos scattered before her, containing images of spirits captured by her mother. The photos before her are these exact photos. Not similar, but the exact photos were taken by her mother. Finding nothing other than a key belonging to a safe she recalled to seeing back in the personal study, Miku returns to that study where opening the safe grants her yet another vision. This time it shows a man, woman, and their child outside of Himura Mansion, as he makes his intentions clear to research the grounds much the same way Takamine after him. The vision ends as the man is shown opening up the very door Miku needs the mask to gain entry to. This man in the vision then manifests himself behind Miku and leads her to the balcony overlooking the courtyard she had passed through several times throughout the night. The only difference now is that when she looks out, she sees a woman dressed in a black kimono hanging from the giant tree. After this, she sees yet another vision, this of the woman hanging, now alive, using the camera to take pictures of spirits flying around her. As the woman's daughter walks into her paranormal photo shoot, it then jumps to the woman hanging in the tree now, with her daughter standing feet from her mother's lifeless body swaying in the breeze at a loss of words. Acting with haste, Miku makes her way back to the grounds of the courtyard where she finds a photo album in the spot where she had seen the body hanging. She catches a quick vision of the man from before standing in front of the tree, asking the woman why she killed herself. As the vision ends, the hanged woman appears before Miku, bearing an uncanny resemblance to Miku's mother, Miyuki Hinasaki. The spirit springs forward and attempts to hurt Miku, forcing her to take a photo and capture this woman's spirit. After the encounter, Miku finds a suicide note at the base of the tree, identifying the woman not as Miyuki, but instead Yae Munakata, Miku's great-grandmother. The note is written to the man in the vision and the great folklorist that brought the family to Himuro Mansion, Miku's great-grandfather Ryozo Munakata. Beating herself up for letting their daughter and Miku's grandmother Mikoto discover the camera and its powers, which led to the disappearance of Mikoto. Feeling the only thing she could do to express her sorrow would be to take her own life, which unfortunately she did. The photo album that accompanied this letter included photos of children including Mikoto playing demon tag, a family portrait, and a third photo of what looked to be Kirie, the little girl that had been seemingly appearing throughout the night, guiding Miku into the right direction. Next, Miku tracks down the mask shrine where she gets a disturbing vision of a group of men preparing a woman for one of their cruel rituals. This one involving the blinding mask, which is simply a full face mask with stakes pressed through the eye holes. The leader of the grounds raises the mask above his head as his fellow robe-wearer cultists chant a demonic phrase over and over, before slamming the mask down onto the woman's face as she lets down a blood-curdling scream. Miku then realizes this is the woman that spirit had been chasing her throughout the courtyard in the second portion of the house. After obtaining the blinding mask, Miku returns to the large doors and uses it to break the seals and reveal what's been kept behind them. As the doors begin to open, she sees a new vision of Ryozo being grabbed by dozens of hands and being pulled into those same doors. Entering the chamber, Miku finds Ryozo's lifeless body still clutching the second mirror shard. Picking it up shows a collection of visions seemingly telling one giant story in 3 seconds, from the ritual to the breaking of the mirrors, ending with the shrine maiden looking at Miku. Rising to her feet with the second shard, Miku is once again approached by the evil Kirie. Still showing no effect to the camera, Kirie overtakes Miku once again, causing her to faint. This ending Miku's second night in the mansion. Miku's third night begins with visions of the strangling ritual being performed on Kirie, followed by flash images of the ritual master slaughtering all of his followers. Miku wakes up, now with branding rope marks on both her wrists and ankles, and heads out to find a way past a wall collapsed of rubble where moments earlier she had spotted Mafuyu. As she heads to the doors again, she's stopped by the child of Kirie, who once again brings something to Miku's attention. This time it's a journal detailing a place called the Moon Shrine, a place that housed all of the ritual sacrificed maidens. At the bottom of this shrine is a place called the Moon Well. This is where the rope shrine maiden had been kept until the night on which the moonlight had shined down from above and into the well, purifying the shrine maiden and signifying it being the night for the strangling ritual. Heading to this shrine, which is located in the same courtyard she had saw visions of her great-grandmother's hanging. Before reaching the courtyard, however, Miku sees another vision of the ritual master slaying one of his cultists in cold blood, then transitioning from this flashback and appearing in spirit form right in front of Miku. The ritual master appearing to be much quicker than the other spirits Miku had encountered throughout the night, she's still able to capture him in photo form, preventing his pursuit as she finally continues her journey to the Moon Shrine. Along the way, she continues to find journals and documents containing more information on just why the strangling ritual occurs, it being believed to be the final preventative measure of man, the sacrifice of the shrine maiden and the strangling ritual to keep the gates of hell sealed and preventing the event known as the Calamity, the event in which the seal is broken and hell's demons run the world freely. This strangling ritual was to be done on December 13th every 10 years. Arriving at the Moon Shrine, Miku must then capture each of the 4 ritual priests that acted as rope pullers in the strangling ritual's personal crest symbols. As she gathers the 4 priest symbols and captures each of the priests in the process, Miku gathers a collection of writings from each, all pieced together telling a story of their fears of Kirie becoming attracted to a new man that arrived at Himuro Mansion, thus potentially jeopardizing her purity, her duty as the rope shrine maiden, and the entire strangling ritual itself. So, as instructed by the ritual master, the 4 rope pullers killed this man and hid his body from Kirie in the best interest of the ritual. The next 2 of the priest's writings occur after Kirie had discovered what they had done to this man, sending Kirie into a fit of manic depression. The final writing of which stating that the ritual had failed and malice had flooded the earth. Finally, after defeating the 4 rope pullers as well as the ritual's master himself, Miku reveals the Moonwell and descends into its depths, unsure of what she's about to find. In the bottom of the well, Miku discovers the enshrined corpse of one of the rope shrine maidens along with the 3rd mirrored shard. Taking the shard shows a vision of Kirie taking part in a strangling ritual in which the 4 rope pullers each control a limb of Kirie's body attached to a rope, each tightening causing their individual limb to draw blood, coating the rope, helping purify the ropes in readiness for the hanging shrine at the gate. As it comes to be expected with each acquisition of a new mirrored shard, adult Kirie appears once again and moves towards Miku. This time, instead of deciding to do another photo op, Miku heads up the ladder out of the well. With each rung she ascends, the hands reach out closer and closer. As she reaches the top, however, another hand reaches out for her. This, the hand of child Kirie. Helping Miku out of the well, Kirie pleads for Miku's help as the third night comes to an end. Miku awakens in the room she had found the scattered pictures in from before, greeted once again by the small girl in white pointing at the koto on the floor before disappearing. On the table next to the photos is a sheet of music that Miku uses to play on the koto. Doing this causes the closet door to open, revealing a staircase to yet another undiscovered area. The stairs take Miku across a platform above the rest of the mansion where, in one of the spots, Miku peeks into a place in the wall where a light is shining. Looking through this hole, Miku sees a vision of Kirie crying inconsolably in the small bedroom Miku had passed through several times throughout the past couple of nights, as she says, before disappearing. Continuing through the pathway, Miku ends up in a room housing a large prison-like structure set in its center. In the cell, Miku again sees the small girl in white bound with ropes to 2 pillars positioned like the shrine doll she had seen back in the doll room. Entering the cell, Miku finds diary that confirmed what she had already believed from the photo she had saw earlier in the night, that the small girl in white is indeed Kirie. Throughout Kirie's diary, she tells the events that were taking place the day of her entry, that being the day of the strangling ritual, detailing the mansion thriving with life, many relatives of the house gathering for this ritual. Ending the diary, Kirie expresses her newfound desire to live, thanking the man that came to the mansion, dreading her obligation to sacrifice herself as the shrine maiden. On the floor in the spot where she had just seen Kirie, Miku finds the 4th mirror shard and Kirie's hairpin. Touching the pin gives Miku a vision, this one unlike all of the others, showing leaves falling from cherry blossom trees in the courtyard as Kirie approaches a man, the man that came to the mansion and stole Kirie's heart, who struck an uncanny resemblance to Mafuyu. With calming melodies complementing the moment, they embrace as the vision fades away. Leaving the cell, Miku spots Kirie's child spirit walking towards the exit of the room. Focusing on the girl, Miku doesn't hear evil Kirie enter the room throughout the large floor mirror Miku had just passed. This time, Miku doesn't wait around to see what happens, instead heading through the door where child Kirie went to take her, all the way through a hallway where she had been plenty of times before. The same hallway connected to the exact room she had seen in the vision of Kirie crying inconsolably earlier. Heading to this door seems to halt evil Kirie's pursuit, allowing Miku time to recollect herself as she stumbles across another of Kirie's diaries. One of Kirie gaining suspicion that the priests had done something evil to hurt the man she'd fallen for, along with another entry after discovering the truth that these priests had indeed murdered the man and hid his body away from Kirie, instead telling her that he had left back to his homeland so not to distract her from her obligations of being the shrine maiden. After losing her pursuer completely, Miku returns back to the Moonwell, where she places the hairpin she had found in Kirie's prison cell in an indentation next to the shrine maiden's corpse, opening a hidden door in the chamber in the process. Through the door, Miku comes to a large rock passage where she sees another vision, the vision showing priests by the dozen walking the path. At the front of this pack, Miku makes out Kirie being dragged along as the group lead her to the ritual site. Making a last plea to see the man she had fallen for one more time, the vision sadly comes to an end. At the foot of the door at the end of this passage, Miku finds a message from Mafuyu to her. In the note, he reveals that much the same way she has caught glimpses of him throughout the night in this mansion, he has seen her as well. On top of this, he fills in more of Kirie's purpose, telling Miku that due to Kirie being sad after losing her love and not willing to fully fulfill her obligations as the shrine maiden, she died at the shrine, exposing her spirit to the malice behind the gate, thus turning her into the evil creature that wanders the mansion now, corrupting all she comes in contact with, all except Mafuyu, who she seems to believe is that same man she had lost when she was still alive. Mafuyu ends the note telling Miku he intends to visit Kirie to keep her company, then tells Miku to use the holy mirror at the shrine to reseal the gate and prevent any more death at the mansion or the region. Pushing through the door, Miku sees a vision of Kirie going through the strangling ritual, with each of the 4 priests rotating a wheel attached to each of her limbs until Kirie seemingly dies, after which the men are all shown holding the ropes now soaked in Kirie's blood to the sky, symbolizing the successful sacrifice. Ending the vision, Miku comes across a weakened version of Kirie's spirit lying on the ritual pad. Mercifully taking a picture of it and capturing it, she then continues to the outer doors of the large shrine where she finds yet another note from Mafuyu, speaking on the camera they had received from their mother being owned by their grandmother Mikoto, stating Mikoto's mother also died the same way that their mother had died, finishing the note believing that the camera had something to do with the curse on the entire mansion. As she makes her way through the door, Miku reaches the shrine at last, where she gets a vision of the priest and the ritual master binding the blood-soaked ropes to the pillars on either side of the gate. However, due to Kirie forming a bond with the man in the days prior to her sacrifice, she was not pure, causing this ritual to fail, leading to the ropes snapping as the gate bursts open, releasing malice throughout the chamber, shattering the holy mirror and pouring its evil out into the world. Flowing through the chamber, the malice corrupted the priests that were all viewing the sacrifice, causing them to all turn and either kill themselves or each other. After approaching the shrine, she then sees Mafuyu standing just feet before her, reaching out and calling her name as corrupt Kirie manifests behind him, slowly lowering his arm and saying,
"We'll always be together."
The collection of hands that typically accompany Kirie engulf Mafuyu, causing him to disappear. Then, left alone in the chamber with only herself and this corrupt Kirie, Miku makes a final stand, raising her camera and readying it to attempt to capture this spirit. After a lengthy engagement, the camera explodes in Miku's hands, sending her to the ground. As corrupt Kirie slowly approaches, Miku looks to the spot where the camera had shattered just moments prior, where she now sees child Kirie standing, pointing at what was left of the camera. Looking closer, she sees that the 5th and final shard of the holy mirror was inside of the camera the entire time, helping confirm Mafuyu's belief that the camera was somehow tied to the curse at Himuro Mansion. Rushing to the final shard, Miku grabs all 5 pieces and together they become the one true holy mirror. She then takes the holy mirror and inserts it into an indentation in the center pillar. As she inserts the mirror into the recess, corrupt Kirie moves towards Miku, passing through the light emitted from the holy mirror in the process. This causes the evil spirits bound to the surrounding of Kirie to vanish in a flash, as Kirie, now appearing in adult human form, collapses to her knees, along with a returned Mafuyu just behind. As Miku reunites with her brother, Kirie is approached by her child's spirit. Much as she had been helping guide Miku through the night, she points at the gate, reminding adult Kirie,
"Don't forget your duty."
before fading away, much like the corrupt spirits had done moments earlier. Approaching the door, Kirie seals it once again before bounding herself to the ropes attached to the pillars on either side, now using her own body as the barrier that prevents the calamity. As she instructs Miku and Mafuyu to leave, Miku heads towards the exit, only to see a conflicted Mafuyu standing in the same place. He tells Miku to leave without him, feeling there's something he can still do in this place to help comfort Kirie. As Miku tries to process what her brother's having just told her, the roof begins to collapse, giving Miku no other option but to leave, alone. As the screen fades to black, Miku hears Mafuyu's final message, a message of Kirie's plea to him for help, a message of Kirie's split desires, one to fulfill the duties of the Shrine Maiden, and the other to be with her true love. This message confirmed the suspicion that this duality is the cause for the calamity, resulting in Kirie's soul being touched by the malice, turning her to the corrupt spirit she had become, torturing everyone that had came around Himuro Mansion, including Takamine and his team. Feeling compassion for the fact that Kirie must remain bound to this rope shrine for all of eternity to prevent the calamity from once again happening, Mafuyu then tells Miku he believes that his presence next to Kirie will help ease just a bit of her eternal pain while she will endure this. This simply being due to the fact that he resembles Kirie's lost love so much. He treats this decision as an act of heroism to sacrifice his freedom much the same way she has. Miku opens her eyes now at the bridge leading to Himuro Mansion once again, looking on as hundreds of the souls lost in the calamity float away, returning to their place of purpose. As Mafuyu gives one final goodbye, Miku reveals that after the events in Himuro Mansion,
Ever since that day, I stopped seeing things that other people don't see.
A super somber and sobering ending, watching the spirits fly away, freed from the clutches of the haunted grounds. Hearing Mafuyu's final goodbye to his sister, accepting his choice to stay by the Shrine Maiden's side as she protects our world from the entities beyond Hell's Gates. A very selfless and heroic act by Mafuyu as the story comes to its conclusion. So that's the end of the game, right? You know, you beat the story, you see Miku, Mafuyu tells Miku to stay back, he's gonna go hang out with Kirie and sacrifice himself. Very sad, but good ending, right? Well, for one reason or another, beating the game unlocks, separate things that then unlock a nightmare mode. This is how you get the true ending, which is complete opposite. For one reason or another, Mafuyu doesn't decide to hang out with Kirie. He's like, I ain't got time for you. Him and Miku bang out, and instead of just her saying, she no longer sees visions, it's both of them saying that neither of them, no longer see visions. Of the two, clearly the first ending is way better, way more impactful. Finding threads online, I was genuinely confused and wondering which is considered the canon ending, considering this one is called the true ending. The actual normal ending is considered canon by Shibata and his team, apparently setting up for the events of the third entry in the franchise that we'll get to eventually. So even though the second ending is titled the true ending, the creators of the game insist that the first ending is actually canon. Sounds like a headache, but believe me, researching it was just as much of a pain. There's also an exclusive ending added to the Xbox version of the game that was released in 2004. To get this, you must first complete the newly added Fatal mode, a vamped up nightmare mode difficulty if you can believe that. This ends much the same way as the true ending, with both main characters escaping. Then, through a collection of stills accompanying the end credits, we're shown Miku and Mafuyu exiting the mansion as the spirit of Kirie's love finally joins her at her rope shrine to spend all of eternity by her side. This ending feels very fan servicey, and it's not that big a deal if you don't get to watch it. As stated in the ending of the spoiler section, there's several reasons to return to the game after completing it the first time. From alternate endings to new costumes. This requires you to complete the game, unlocking then completing a collection of boss battle levels in which you face several spirits at once in any specific location within Himuro Mansion. Much like the combat in the game, your goal is to inflict enough damage to defeat them. Compiling a better score leads to a better grade at the end of each level. Now you only need to complete the collection of 20 levels with no specific grade in order to unlock Nightmare Mode. This being exactly that, the spirits hit way harder and that helpful hint of the flickering filament is completely removed from this difficulty. After doing this, you're rewarded with what's called the Nightmare Difficulty ending. Throughout the completion of each of these difficulties themselves, there's another set of unlockables throughout, including the in-game sound tests, ghost lists being awarded after the first playthrough, the ability to take photos without any film after completing Nightmare in under 4 hours, a special ability for completing all aforementioned ghost lists, and a collection of costumes awarded for completing the game in Nightmare and in under 4 hours. Now the best part about all of this is that throughout all of the extra modes, from the new difficulties to the boss battle modes, the XP gained carries over and is used in all the modes, meaning the camera that you most likely boosted to the max in your OG playthrough is still just as strong as that, with the ability to be further upgraded in the boss battles, and it remains this strong in your Nightmare playthrough. For all intents and purposes, the Nightmare playthrough is more or less a New Game Plus before New Game Plus was a thing. But this doesn't change the fact that almost all of the in-game encounters will result in a one-shot kill unless you keep one of those stone mirrors on hand. All in all, there's plenty of goodies to keep you coming back to Himuro Mansion a few times over. The first time I played the game, it took me 7 hours on a blind playthrough. I gained my ground pretty fast and ended up completing the game in Nightmare difficulty in under 3 hours, landing me with an S rank, so you won't be spending any more time in the mansion than you want to in order to grab those extra unlockables. In post-release, Fatal Frame did enough to create its own legacy, one that has helped carry the series across several decades, console generations, and forms of media. From manga to movie scripts, Fatal Frame has crossed over with relatively moderate success. Miku Hinasaki also makes cameo appearances in various Tecmo and Nintendo titles after Fatal Frame, including Super Swing Golf and Monster Rancher 4. From a vision in Shibata's brain to a staple of survival horror, Zero, aka Fatal Frame, created a perfect snapshot in survival horror at a time when many others simply struggled developing their vision. So there you have it, Fatal Frame. An extremely good game, very slept on in the grand scheme of things. Like I said, titles come out all the time and they overshadow other ones, but for this being Tecmo's first swing at survival horror, I think it was amazing. It stood the test of time with multiple entries after the fact and mini games, side games, and something that will certainly entertain getting into eventually. Outside of that, I want to thank everybody. It's been a crazy 1 year. This is officially my first year spread out with these videos, with the channel, pushing hard, getting nothing but support. I want to thank you guys. I'm going to keep pushing hard. Like I said, several setbacks, they're not going to derail me. Constantly moving, the rooms are always changing. I swear, like the last 6 videos I've had a different room, but I'm getting things set up the right way how I want it. Presentation is most important to me when it comes to these. Anybody can talk about a game. It starts with me with presentation. I want my audio, my video, and everything to be on point, so I won't put out half-assed stuff. So that's why it takes as long as it does for me. These are 10,000 plus word scripts, and it's passion. That's all it is. So for everybody that's watched, listened, liked, subscribed, anything in between, I want to thank every single one of you genuinely from the bottom of my heart. I'm going to keep continuing to do this, and I look forward to you being with me as we go on. All right, Zachariah, Kaine. See you.